Lecture 2. What is death? What dies and what does not die? Introduction. Very good evening to all. Welcome to the Phase A conferences. Today we will talk about death. Greetings to all those who accompany us tonight. We give you the most cordial welcome. For new ones, at the bottom you will find the link to the first conference, Knowing Self and its Objectives, which will help you to understand this teaching. Lecture 2. What is death? What dies and what does not die? Introduction. Very good evening to all. Welcome to the Phase A conferences. Today we will talk about death. Greetings to all those who accompany us tonight. We give you the most cordial welcome. For new ones, at the bottom you will find the link to the first conference, Knowing Self and its Objectives, which will help you to understand this teaching. Well, let's start tonight's conference. Today's lecture number 2 on the Phase A theme entitled Death. What dies and what doesn't die? Well, all people are afraid of death. Most of the time some are reckless and not, but most people are very afraid of death because they don't know. When someone doesn't know something, they fear it. When someone knows something, they are scared because they already know how it works. It's no longer something unknown. Then this lecture teaches us the process of death. How does it happen? How does it happen? Where does it go? What does it do when it's dead? A rather important issue, and the goal is that we are already beginning to take away fear of death and understand that the reason to live is to die. But what do you mean by dying? Because there are 3 types of death. What are we going to see in this conference? Then you live to die and you are born to die. Then you are born to die and you die to be born. It sounds incongruous, but let's see that it is not. If the seed, the germ does not die, the plant is not born. Death is always the end of something. Death liberates. Then when a person dies, it is released from this physical plane, from these 48 milks. And logical, since it has no research capacity, it has no capacity to remember, because it does not remember when it has died, it is already born. But through brain regeneration, let's start remembering our past existences. As the person wakes up consciousness, logically this is going to happen. Well, we've died and we've been born thousands of times. Law of return. There is a law that is called the law of return that leads you to be born and die because you have to return 108 turns, times in one of the turns of the wheel of the samsara. But it is 3,000 turns that gives the wheel of the samsara. That means that there are 324,000 human physical bodies that a person must have in order for these laws to be fulfilled. But well, we're tearing this apart through lectures, but it's good to know that death is simply a natural process, where the person fulfills a few cycles and changes his or her dress, changes his or her body. These processes are mechanical. These processes have to be given yes or yes, because the laws are fulfilled, the laws are immutable. And well, we come to the knowledge to know this and to go through it to get out of that mechanics, because a being that self-realizes, stops dying, already becomes immortal. Then we have to achieve self-realization in a single existence. But well, let's study these 3 types of death. The 3 types of death. The first is the death of the physical body. The second is the second death, and the third is the psychological death. Death of the physical body. Let's see it from the physical body. This process takes 72 hours, where the body is apparently already dead, but it is really in a state of catalepsy. But it can return at any time, right? During this process, in 72 hours, there are 3 trials. The first trial takes place in the first 5 minutes, where the person makes a conscious retrospective of each of the acts of existence. He will see in detail every event, every situation lived, since he was born until the moment he entered that process. And he compares it to the past existence. Now, it is also for him to become aware of everything he did, because he cannot go to say, I didn't do, or you are accusing me of something I didn't commit. It's not a mistake I didn't make. Already the person becoming aware of all that, he is going to pass to the second trial. This second trial is given at 24 hours, more or less, and is given in the court of divine justice before the lords of the law. 2 things are taken into account here: the atomic weight of each of the cells of the psychological defects and the number or quantity of those cells. Then it compares that with the previous existence to see if it increased the number of cells or decreased. Normally it increased them because the person degenerated more. Then the cells require more weight, more quantity, or less amount. And that is what you keep in mind. Once this process is completed, it passes to the third trial. It is still there in the same court of justice. This is given at 48 hours. The third judgment, and therein this third judgment, three things are taken into account. The weight of the good or bad deeds of each of the selves, what the selves did, because the good selves do good things, and the bad selves, which do bad things. Most people do good things, but they are me's, it is not conscience, it is me's. And they also take into account the number of times that each of those selves manifested in existence. Those two aspects take into account them. And finally, the measure of fire. The measure of fire is whether it worked with the creation of the higher existential bodies of being with sexual transmutation. Once these three judgments are finished, a sum and subtraction is made or broken. That is, everything is reduced to numbers. And there is determined karma which that person or that essence is going to endure in its next existence. And the electropsychic design. They're also going to take into account the electropsychic design of the new personality if you haven't fulfilled the 108 stocks, right? After all this, logically decides whether disembodied or not. If he decides to disembody, there is an angel of death, a teacher who takes this figure. He is a self-realized being who fulfills this task, and he orders the cut of the silver cord. The silver cord unites all 7 bodies or principles of bodies. He unites them, comes out of the navel, and connects all bodies, the physical, vital, astral, mental, causal, beautic, and atomic. He has them all connected in one line. Then the cut is made between the vital, that is, the second body, and the astral, that is, the mass. That's where the angel of death makes the cord. But before making that cord, Bel asks permission from the Divine Mother. If the Mother logically authorizes, does the action. But if not, then no longer has said the opposite. The last word is the Mother. The Mother measures the love of the spark. The angel of death takes up to 24 hours to cut that silver cord. Yes, well, if the Mother authorizes it, right? And if not, then he returns to the body. And now, as he sees his experience of the tunnel that was going to cross the tunnel again and that they returned it. Well, so many experiences that can give a person to understand that it was not the time to disembody. Now, as this is unknown because the conscience, humanity is asleep and everything is according to fashions. Then they bury people long before those 72 hours, and unfortunately they do the autopsy and end up killing the person. You see that many corpses, many bodies inside the coffin wake up. They no longer have organs, they no longer have logic, they are buried and they die asphyxiated or they die. They already destroy the body. Then there they would charge doctors and a little of people all this murder process, because this person still has to come back and finds nowhere to live. In some cemeteries, they put a bell out of the tomb and tied a cord to the finger of the person who was buried. And when the person woke up, then logically he would ring that bell and dig it up. The Indians once expected that if water was coming out of the ears after 3 days, logically that person was already dead. This character of this dying person opens up 3 alternatives to him. And these alternatives are that he has already fulfilled his 108 existences, he has already complied with the law of return and must enter the involution, that is, the second death that we are already going to see inside the planet. Then, there he will stay, they will awaken his consciousness momentarily during those trials when they enter the limbo. The second alternative is that if he has fulfilled his 108 existences, then he will enter directly into the involution, the second death. If he has not fulfilled the 108 existences, then he enters the limbo. But if he has worked with the sacred fire, he awakens the fire, he does not go to the limbo. He remains disincarnated and goes on a vacation in one of the 7 heavens. There the Divine Mother, for she will give him the strength, give him instructions, help him so that when his next existence is born, he will follow the work of self-realization that he had in the previous existence. Unfortunately, despite all the strength and all that help when a person is born, he lets himself be carried away from the lust of the environment, of the friends, of the family, and ends up destroying everything that he did in his past existence. Therefore, it must be understood that one must self-realize in a single existence. Well, let us see the second death, which is the second death. And this is when the person already fulfilled his 108 existence and she leads to the 9 circles of Hades. And there is left to disintegrating the terrible error, disting him in a single existence. So there, in that involution, in that process of entering the 9 planet Earth's Dantec circles, because it will have to pay, it will have to suffer, it will have to endure all the trauma of pain for 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 years or more, everything is relative. And while that is the process of involution, suffering, or decomposition until the essence is completely cleansed and it brings them out again. The third judgment, and therein this third judgment 3 things are taken into account. The weight of good or bad deeds of each of the selves, what the selves did because the good selves do good things and the bad selves who do bad things. Most people do good things, but it is me's, it is not conscience, it is me's. And they also take into account the number of times that each of those selves manifested in existence. Those two aspects take them into account. And finally, the measure of fire. The measure of fire is whether it worked with the creation of the higher existential bodies of being with sexual transmutation. Once these three judgments are finished, a sum and subtraction is made of broken ones. That is, everything is reduced to numbers. And there it determines karma which that person or that essence is going to endure in its next existence. In the electropsychic design, they cannot charge it all karma because people do not resist, but they charge them a certain amount of pain for all the mistakes they made. The rest keeps it. They're also going to take into account the electropsychic design of the new personality if you haven't fulfilled the 108 stops, right? After all this, he logically decides whether or not disincarnated, whether he decides to disembody. There is an angel of death, a teacher who takes this figure. He is a self-realized being who fulfills this task, and he orders the cut of the silver cord. The silver cord unites all 7 bodies or principles of bodies. It unites them, comes out of the navel, and connects all bodies, the physical, vital, astral, mental, causal, buddhic, and atomic. It has them all connected in one line. Then the cut is made between the vital, that is, the second body, and the astral, that is, the mass. That is where the angel of death makes the cord. But before making that cord, the angel of death asks permission from the Divine Mother. If the Mother authorizes, logically, the action. But if not, then so Anubis has said the opposite, the last word is the Mother. The Mother measures the love of the spark, and if that spark has had some human sensitivity, mercy, it has been given to the brothers in a more or less loving way. Then it lengthens the existence. But if it is a degenerate element, drug addict, problematic, well, degenerate because it has nothing to rescue him, because they will not extend to him more than it is due to his existence. The angel of death takes up to 24 hours to cut that silver cord. Yes, well, if the Mother authorizes it, right? And if not, then he returns to the body. And already, because he sees again narrating his experience of the tunnel that was going to cross the tunnel and that they returned it. Well, so many experiences that can give a person to imply that it was not the time to disembody. Now, as this is unknown, because consciousness, humanity is asleep and everything is according to fashions. So, people are buried long before those 72 hours, and unfortunately they do the autopsy and end up killing the person. You see that many corpses, many bodies inside the coffin wake up. They no longer have organs, they no longer have logic, they are buried and they die asphyxiated or they die. They have already destroyed the body. Then they would charge doctors and a little bit of people with this whole murder process, because this person, even if he had to go back, because he already returns and finds no place to live. So these kinds of mistakes are made because people logically, everyone is asleep and do not understand the processes of higher laws and how trials work. Then in the past, they waited for those 72 hours logically for the wake. In some cemeteries, they put a bell out of the tomb and tied a cord to the finger of the person who was buried. And when the person woke up, then logically sounded that bell and dug it up. The Indians formerly expected that if water came out of the ears after 3 days, logically that person was already dead. This character of this dying one opens up 3 alternatives to him. And these alternatives are that he has already fulfilled his 108 existences. He has already complied with the law of return and he must enter the involution. That is, the second death that we are already going to see inside the planet. Then, there he will stay. They will temporarily awaken his consciousness during those trials when they enter the limbo. The second alternative is that he has not fulfilled his 108 existences and, well, in this pardon, if he has fulfilled the 108 existences, he will enter directly into the involution to the second death. If he has not fulfilled the 108 existences, then he enters the limbo. But if he worked with the sacred fire, he awoke the fire, he does not go to limbo. He is disincarnated and goes on a vacation in one of the 7 heavens. There the Divine Mother will give him the strength, give him instructions, help him so that when his next existence is born, he will follow the work of self-realization that he had in his previous existence. Unfortunately, despite all the strength and all that help when a person is born, he lets himself be carried away from the lust of the environment, of friends, of the family, and ends up destroying everything he did in his past existence. Therefore, one must understand that one must self-realize in one existence. Psychological death. Well, let's see the second death, which is the second death. And this is when the person already fulfilled his 108 existences and she leads to the 9 circles of Hades. And then she's going to stay disintegrating nature, disintegrating the bad ones, all the me's, and charging him all karma because that he makes all the mistakes he wants and that they won't collect it. That would be terribly unfair. Then there, in that evolution, in that process of entering into the 9 circles of Hades of planet Earth, because it will have to pay, it will have to suffer, it will have to endure all the trauma of pain for 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 years or more, everything is relative. And well, that is the process of involution, suffering or decomposition until the essence is completely cleansed and it brings them out again in the light of the sun, where it will make a new evolution beginning in the mineral realm. That would already be another return to a new wheel or a new turn of the wheel of the sun.uz, where it will make a new evolution beginning in the mineral realm. That would already be another return to a new wheel or a new turn of the wheel of the samsara. Psychological death and its importance. These 2 deaths, physical death and second death, are mechanical. They occur yes or yes in all people. But let's say that the most important thing is to get rid of these 2 types of death. So to get rid of these 2 types of death, you have to use psychological death, because death kills, death for an eternity, black death, mechanical death, whichever one leads to evolution, to degeneration. You, at this moment, without realizing it, are killing each other alone. Anger, resentment, hatred, fear, joy, pleasure, all swallow. Ego is killing you. You are treating yourself alive, and you do not realize it. And nature swallows it too, because you have to produce nature. So the person must understand that you can be liberated and that he will do it with psychological death. Psychological death is going to lead the person to immortality, to unite with his being. Of these 3 deaths, physical, second, and psychological death is the most important tool to be able to self-realize. The 3 factors, but the basis is psychological death. So it is necessary to understand that this practice has to be applied every day, second to second. And there is death in progress, and there is reflective death. So let's see how this practice is carried out. Well, the person must start from a psychological state in which he must remain. We are going to free ourselves from all that we see, from the whole physical part, from the astral part, from the mental part. We are going to go practically to free ourselves from all the mass, from all the mechanics, from all the law of this universe. That is, we are going to separate ourselves from this universe, because this universe is a machine. Mineral, plant, animal, human, planets, suns, galaxies, asteroids, everything that exists, no matter what, it is mechanical. And beings are not mechanical, but as we are trapped in the mechanics of this universe, by ourselves, because the universe is swallowing us. The machine is sorbing us. So the goal is to free us from this universe, to separate us from this universe. And for that, therefore, we must renounce through psychological death the things of this universe. Well, our mental, emotional, motive, incentive, and sexual constitution is to feed this universe of volumative and involutive. So you have to get out of that inferior psychology, that decadent psychology, and enter into a superior psychology. This superior psychology is not fornicative, it is a transcendental psychology. It is the psychology of being, in order to develop that superior psychology. So you have to keep your mind silent. That's why you have to kill all thought, memories, ideas, talks, concepts, beliefs, and ideologies, fears, anguish, projections, theories, etc. All the time fight so that it is really silent, totally silent. Controlled emotion, joy, pleasure, joy, sadness, melancholy. All that is morbid sentimentalism. The 5 centers to control. The motor part, all the actions of the body and all the words and works that the self makes us perform. Masturbate, consume porn, drug, alcohol, be talking rubbish, be wasting time, all the actions of the self in the motor part. In the instinctive part, all the reactions of the body, nervous alteration, carnal burning, muscle tension, recollection, tremor, heat or chill, heat from the point of view of the self. Not body heat, but the feelings of heat that you feel, anger, lust, fear. All the feelings of lust that the body experiences with the aim of feeling pleasure to come more. In the sexual part, the output of the sexual creative energy, semen. Kill the self to have control over that apparatus and not to continue losing the sexual energy. Then there are the 5 centers that must be totally controlled, still dead. When the person is dying and killing the selves, it is that activates those 5 centers logically that society are going to begin to develop upwards towards the solar part. Then there are the solar part that depend, and it does not need all the concepts of the solar. Conscience and observation. Then you have to understand that if you are going to die, you have to be controlling those 5 centers, second to second, all day long. But people are identified with money, with study, with work, with cell phones, with games, with fun, with drugs, with alcohol, with friends, with family, with everything. And they do not understand that all those identifications with the things of the universe, anything good or bad, is produced by the selves, a thing to center. Without being identified with the things of the world, of the universe, and another thing is to be identified united, feeling things. There's the error, there's the problem, there's the fornication product of the selves. Then they asked the mother to kill him that feeling, to kill him that thought, to kill him that memory, to kill him that me in love, to kill him that morbid self, that ort me. Second by second they go out, they parade thousands and thousands and thousands of details. And if the person is dying in motion, fighting all day to control himself and be able to focus and feel the heat of consciousness that is only present in that inner silence, in that tranquility, in that peace, that person must keep all day long. That is the struggle. A self-realized being never gets out of the depths of his psyches, lives in there, but people live where the mind is. If the mind is in a toy, there it is. If the mind is remembering over there what happened a month ago, a year, 2 years, a day, there it is. If it is futuring and going to fantasize about things of the future, there it is. A self-realized being lies here and now. Why? Because the past does not exist and the future does not exist. There are mechanics and repetitions. The past becomes future by projection through the law of recurrence, and logically that the projection also of death for the recovery of karma. And that's what the future calls, but that's just a movement of some laws. That future doesn't exist. There's the eternal present. And from here, from the eternal present, you can see everything that's happened in the past and how that past is projected into the future and it's going to repeat the same thing again. Well, then they asked the mother, Mother, Mayamari be me. The mother is a part of the being that is in charge of cleaning the child. The mother has no form. The mother is love that takes the form of the physical mother in the astral to teach us things related to love. But it is beyond, right? The mother is a very powerful force that is in charge of that work. Then you have to ask, Mother Mayamari is reminded me. Mother Mayamari is me. Mother Mayamari is feeling me. You can imagine how it burns, how it explodes, how it destroys that self. You can imagine it as you want, or if you feel it in the body, you burn the part where I am, or it explodes in that part. And ready, you are again under the control of concentration. That is the way to kill the selves all the time, all the day, and there you are developing that inner warmth that is the warmth of consciousness that keeps you on alert in self-observation, to keep discovering and discovering more and more you and continues to kill them. That is the death in progress, and the other is the reflexive death that we will already see in conference number 22. But it is also very simple, isn't it? Well, ready, that's psychological death. Now let's see what it is that dies. The physical body dies, the vital body dies, and the personality dies. When the existence ends, these three things logically disintegrate. The physical body and the vital body disintegrate more or less to the pair and the personality. If it depends on the memories of the relatives of the friends, the concentration of that memory keeps that personality alive for a certain time. But in the long run, it will die. What does not die is the consciousness. The 3% essence that each person has is immortal. That is the only real, true purpose. Yes, it is a part of God in one, and this knowledge is focused on awakening that consciousness to the development of that consciousness that in principle is 3%. It is going to be developed until it reaches 100% and achieves the inner self-realization of being. Death as liberation, it is all the most important thing with death. Let's kill this white death, we are going to kill that black death. The importance of transcendence. If they got some money, they left it to the drug-addicted children, they left it to the relatives to spend it, and that's all. And they took nothing out, they died like any other, they didn't transcend anything, they didn't do anything productive, so they ended the existence of a person if they didn't kill him before or die of some disease. So, very interesting this topic, because it shows us the basis for being able to achieve immortality. As they did, they taught it the Egyptians and all the ancient cultures that speak of immortality and of the gods. But since everything becomes a mockery, like everything becomes a religion, holy Rona, like everything is generated in form, because the principles of what really, the power of such high and transcendental knowledge like this were lost. Alright, this concludes tonight's lecture. I hope it was of your liking and interest, and beyond that, that it has generated motivation for work. So, with this I conclude. For next week, we will see a very important subject that is called a practice, which is the holder of astral unfolding. Let's understand the need to have our astral, bring our own knowledge that gives you directly the being, and logically do the research and corroborate that it is important to corroborate and investigate and not to continue swallowing whole. Then, little garbage that has been put into the head of books, theories, magazines, internet, professors, scientists, philosophers, psychologists, garbage on garbage. and they tell nothing but nothing of what they have in that head full of nonsense. Then it would be good to remember a past existence. It would be good for them to talk to the real alchemists with the real knowledge, wise of magnetism, of electricity, of cosmology, etc. That would be a real wisdom, but to believe to all of them, then it is a technology. But well, anyone who wants to see that the wonders of self and invaluable things have the right to keep seeing it. But in the case of those who are already in a process of revolution with this work, we aspire to higher things. Well, here Tatiana tells us, well, death in progress during the day helps to grow concentration. Of course, concentration is a full state of vibration of consciousness. Silence, tranquility, concentrated in that state of remembrance of itself and learning to live decently because no one knows how to live decently. Everyone walks with sadness, melancholy, depression, rage, stress, problems in their head, feelings, disorders, and the instinctive part, anxiety. Well, everyone walks in that sorry state. Knowledge teaches us to live dignifiedly, but without that there is nothing. Here Veronica tells us, good night when one dies and follows the personality. How will it be if one feels the same as when we are alive? Well, when the person goes to limbo, the person projects what he did in the physical. What does that mean? That one goes to limbo and finds a sea to a disembodied, and the disembodied one seems to himself because he is living in a cave, for example. In limbo, there are caves or there is nature, but there is no sun. It is as if they were put him here 5:30 in the afternoon, where everything is gray, the sky is full of clouds, very gray all day. That is the environment of limbo. But there are forms, there is a nature that is not very pretty. Let's say it is a grayish or pale nature. And there the person does not realize that he is living in a cave, but that in that cave he projects the house where he was living when he was alive, the couple, the dog, the cat, the car, the office, the money, the streets, everything projects it. Then you get there and tell him, here is that you already died, no longer exist, all that you are imagining, realizes that you are no longer on the physical plane, and the guy gets in a bad temper and tells you, is that you don't see my wife, you don't see my car, and why did that happen? Because here in the physicist you didn't awaken consciousness, and hypnotized with your car, with your cell phone, with your partner, with your cat, with your money, with your house, and how you stuck to all that, as you didn't get lost because you didn't kill yourself, because in a limbo you rebuild everything, and you continue there believing that you are alive. Of course, when he gets judged, his conscience wakes up, but once he gets into limbo, he goes to sleep, and again he projects his famous life that has already passed. That's unfortunate, and everyone is like this. Some thieves or murderers put them to live in limbo in very ugly places, where there is rotting water, where there are sewers, where there are bullets, where they have bugs, and there they live while they give them a new body. I had to do the research with my brother, who died with my mom, and well, my brother got a finquita out there, and when I went to talk to him, he said, no, calm, I'm fine. There he had conscience, but he was going to sleep, and well, they already gave body to both of them. My mom and my brother some years ago, they gave them around. So, this has to be seen in a very natural way to remove all these sentimentalities, pain. Logical, you have to do a job, right? Because the person suffers because he is very attached to the family, to the friends, but you have to work all that and realize that this is nothing, that he leaves and never returns. All those concepts and all that nonsense of religions, masses and nonsense that have nothing to do with reality. And it would be good for you to go investigate someone who died and talk to that person or look at the state in which he is, as we have done several here and that we have brought the information. Likewise, you can go and investigate his things and become aware, right? But as I say to you, for this you have to have dharma and merits. No one will be given anything. Then work judicious, win the rights, and well, bring your information and your knowledge. Well, over here he also says, Ali Rio Luis, it's very interesting, really knowledge is death to reach, transcend. Yes, when the person takes or likes or feels love for death, it really starts to move forward. Well, Willie says, when you say he rebuilds everything, would it be with the illusion of the mind? Yes, with the mind he projects everything. It's like a mime talking to the wife in the air, caressing the puppy in the air. There is no dog, there is nothing, it's the air. He's sitting on a stone, but he thinks he's sitting in a chair in the office. But there's nothing, he's asleep, he doesn't realize he's dead. He thinks he's still alive, he's dead, he's eating in the air, he's arguing with the secretary in the air. There's no secretary, there's nothing, they're projections of the mind. And they're because logically people perpetuate what is not real and continue to live it. That is the crude reality of that famous limbo. It would be good if they could and would stick a little turn there, as for this conference to remain, as the teacher Jesus said, flesh and blood. Make knowledge become flesh and blood. Real, no. Well, ready, here says William that this is extreme, they are not natural processes, we don't have to see it with. For it is a little shocking, knowing that no one wants to wake up and that everyone dies and repeats in a way that we are here, right? Well, here Francis says graces, blessings, peace, invincibility from Costa Rica, peace, invincibility. Let us seek peace with death. That is true peace, peace, inner, quiet, serene, calm, because we can wish peace for all the world. Desperate, rabid, quarrelsome, screaming, loud, rude, vulgar. Where is peace? There is no ideal peace. But anyway, thank you for the desire for peace. Well, ready, let's leave this lecture up here. Have a nice evening rest.